U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton has warned Venezuela that any threats against American diplomats or opposition leader Juan Guaidó will be met with a significant response. Mr. Bolton tweeted on Sunday that any such intimidation would be a grave assault on the rule of law. His warning comes days after the U.S. and more than 20 other countries recognized Mr. Guaidó as interim president. They accused President Nicolas Maduro of rigging last year's election. President Maduro was sworn in for a second term earlier this month after an election marred by an opposition boycott and allegations of vote rigging, triggering large protests. The political crisis in Venezuela now appears to be reaching boiling point amid growing efforts by the opposition to unseat Mr. Maduro. Earlier on Sunday, Venezuela's top military representative to the U.S., Colonel José Luis Silva, defected from Mr. Maduro's government, saying he recognized Mr. Guaidó as president instead. Later, Mr. Bolton took to Twitter to reiterate Washington's position, warning others against any form of violence and intimidation. On Saturday, several European countries including Spain, Germany, France and the UK said they would recognize Mr. Guaidó as president if elections were not called within 8 days. But Mr. Maduro has rejected this, saying the ultimatum must be withdrawn. Venezuela is not tied to Europe. This is complete insolence, he told CNN Turk on Sunday. Mr. Maduro added that he was ready to engage in comprehensive dialogue with those who opposed his presidency and that he had sent Donald Trump many messages, but that he thought the U.S. president despises us. He later appeared at a military exercise in Venezuela's central state of Carabobo, where he called for union, discipline and cohesion to overcome what he described as an attempted coup d'etat by Mr. Guaidó. Mr. Maduro broke off relations with the U.S. last Thursday over the country's support for Mr. Guaidó and ordered U.S. envoys to depart Venezuela within 72 hours. However, on Saturday evening, as the deadline was due to expire, Venezuela's foreign ministry said it would withdraw the expulsion order and instead allow 30 days for the two sides to set up interest offices in each other's countries. Interest offices are used when countries do not have formal diplomatic relations but want to have a basic level of contact to represent their interests. Washington has previously said it does not recognize Mr. Maduro's authority to order its diplomats out. Meanwhile, Mr. Guaidó told the Washington Post that he was in talks with sympathetic military officials in Venezuela with the aim of building support for his presidency. At a UN Security Council meeting on Saturday, Russia accused Washington of plotting a coup. However, more than a dozen Latin American countries and Canada have backed Mr. Guaidó as president. Venezuela is in economic crisis. Hyperinflation and shortages of basic essentials has hit its population hard and caused millions to flee. Mr. Maduro has faced internal opposition and ongoing international criticism for his human rights record and handling of the economy. He was re-elected to a second term last year, but the elections were controversial, with many opposition candidates barred from running or jailed. Supreme Court Judge Christian Serpa fled to the U.S. in January, telling journalists the election was not free and competitive.